Greetings, beloveds. As we go into the weekend of July 26th and 27th, I greet you in the love light of the one infinite creator. Markets are just about to close, and there's your closing bell. Again, this is Friday, July 25th, and this is how markets are closing. And we can see, let's call a little bit of an up day with record closing highs for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, especially on a weekly basis. Take a look here. You can see that BTC is trading slightly down, trading at 116,700. Let's take a look at the summary for the week, and we can see the US markets are higher for the week. Let's call it about 1% higher. BTC is down slightly, down 0.5%. Let's take a look at those charts, and we're going to begin with the hourly chart for the NASDAQ. So the first thing I want to draw here is an obvious line that everybody's watching. This is the line connecting recent intraday lows on the hourly for the NASDAQ. We haven't broken this trend line. Of course, we're going to get a reactional move down when we break that trend line. Is that going to be the end of this market's run? No, we don't know, because you can always break down and rebuild and move higher again. But at least that's what we can see here, is that net, as long as we are above this very obvious trend line that I would assume everybody's watching, the market continues to be stable to bullish. Another way of looking at this is this RSI lows line at the lows of the week. We came and tagged it here, which is this price point, and we moved higher. Remember last weekend I was also proposing this line here as being a potential line to watch for short-term re-entries in the market. This is a line where we move above this range, which is here, and since then, for the entire month of July, market's been coming and finding support on the back test of this line. So same thing happened here during the lows of the week. We held here, and which is where we come off the lows before the NASDAQ and S&P 500 go to record fresh all-time highs. Quickly here, we are seeing prices moving higher, and we are starting to see early signs of divergence. Not the biggest divergence in the world, but there's some evidence from the MACD that we are very close to the zero line. So this is the zero line of the MACD. And if we drop below zero on the MACD, expect the market to be losing ground from current levels. But we don't know for now whether we get a shallow pullback or a strong pullback that might change the dynamics of the market. So right now, we have to allow the market room for stability, if not higher prices. We take a look at the daily for the Dow, and now, unlike the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, the Dow has yet to break out. So we all know this. The Dow is struggling to break out. This week, we came back to test a prior daily closing high. Let me give you that number. That number for the Dow is 45. On the daily, 014.04, which is the daily closing high all the way back to December, I believe, or late November. So we've tried to break out above this level a couple of times, but the market has been unsuccessful. We tried here, which led to this sizable drop. We tried here, and we've tried again this week. We have yet to close above that range. All told, again, here we also see that there's a trend line. If you take the daily intraday lows going back to late last year, actually going back to this year in April, you get a trend line that looks like that. So we have yet to break this trend line. So the market continues to be stable to bullish. We have yet to break down below these lows. Remember last weekend, I was also proposing another line that was telling us until we break these two lines that the market should be stable. You can see this week the market has honored those levels, and this might explain why we find support here and we are attacking previous all-time highs. So again, as long as we're above the blue and the black line, markets should continue being stable to bullish. Now I take a look at the NASDAQ daily, and we can see here that from the NASDAQ's perspective, the RSI for the NASDAQ daily is above 69.1, which if you know how to read that, we know that we are still in a market with a high odds of continuing to grind it to the upside. Remember, the market continues to be strong, as I've been talking about, as long as we are above this line. This blue line is where we clear resistance. In fact, let me correct that. That goes back. Let's go back about 2 years here, so you can see what I'm pointing out here. So go back about 2 years on the daily for the NASDAQ. And it's this line here that as long as we're above this line, 2-year daily, this previous resistance line, we managed to clear that level on the daily for the NASDAQ here. And since then has been support. And this has been good guidance throughout this entire process. I think the pullbacks are here. So as long as the NASDAQ daily is above 69.1, you allow the market room to continue to be sideways to higher, even with pullbacks day to day. On the weekly for the NASDAQ, I need to mention that we were anticipating resistance when we came back to this level. But you can see that after some initial resistance and struggles, we finally cleared that area there. So that allows the market room for movement higher. And again, remember, as far as the NASDAQ is concerned, we broke out many weeks ago. I believe this is 5 weeks ago. We've been higher. So the market can pull back even on a weekly standpoint, but we should anticipate that the markets continue being stable to bullish even with pullbacks. Now take a look at the Dow. Actually, let's take a look at the S&P 500 weekly, and we can see something similar here. There's a couple lines. So this was supposed to be a line where there was going to be some difficulty. We moved above that line here. And then there was a topside line that was offering resistance. So there was this line here. And for a while, it seemed like we were struggling. But even that was taken out. So again, what that means that if this breakout continues to be very healthy, and even let's say if we get a pullback, the pullback should come back to test the upward sloping moving averages. So there's a lot of support underneath the market. In other words, it's going to take some work for the market to completely break down. We might get pullbacks along the way, but we haven't seen any major sell signals as far as I can tell. Dow on the weekly, again, the Dow has yet to break out. So there's this resistance band here. This is the weekly. Now also, another way of looking at this is we can say that there seems to be the possibility of a cup and handle breakout. We can use this weekly closing high there as a breakout level. And if that's the case, then we can see that the Dow is just broke out above that range and needs to hold above that level. That level is at 44,910, I believe. Let me correct that. 44,828.53. So this is this weekly closing high right there. As long as we're above that level, then this market definitely should record all-time highs for the Dow. At the same time, if we are unable to clear this range and we start pulling back, in other words, a failed breakout would be a red flag that this market is running into trouble. So a failure to break out here is exactly what the bears want to see. At the same time, there's this area here, which I've been talking about as potential for resistance for the Dow. If we end up being rejected here, if the price breakout fails, those two things would lead to a market that definitely is going to see a strong correction. In other words, we're going to come off the highs before we can reevaluate our next move. So again, watching this level here is important. If we can clear that level, then there's more upside for the market. But to keep it simple, the Dow needs to hold above its current breakout, above 44,828.53. Now remember, as far as the big picture is concerned, if we take a look at the NASDAQ, we know that the NASDAQ monthly, again, is very strong. The RSI is above 69.1. So that's a market that you really have to give room for even higher prices. S&P 500 is also looking good with its RSI above 69.1. The Dow is struggling a little bit, and that's why the Dow has not yet to break out. So the Dow has its RSI at about 63, which is why it's not breaking out. But the Dow could eventually catch up with a price breakout above this level and the RSI eventually moving above 69.1. But the leadership is definitely in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Now, if you take a look at some of the stocks that have been moving well, now if you take a look at some of the top performing stocks over the last 12 months, you'll see that my subscribers are very familiar with all of these names, because these are names that we've been playing for a little bit. In fact, over the last year, all these names are familiar to my subscribers. And we take a look at some of their charts here. You can see the arrows, the blue arrows represent where I sent out a breakout alert. We can see here did not break out, but eventually broke out from the 40s, has gone as high as 100. This is PSIX. It's done well. I'm still tracking it for a future breakout. This is VRNA. Stock continues to move higher. And again, you can see the blue arrows where we have sent out breakout alerts. And remember, not all breakout alerts will work. We can see a good example here. It did not work. So you get stopped out. You try again. It comes back and attempts another breakout. I sent a breakout alert, and that one was more successful. This is a stock here in the 30s breaking out, has gone as high as 105 for 2025, and there was another couple breakout alerts sent here in the 70s. Take a look at another name here. This is a spin-off of GEV. So ever since the stock was an IPO, let's call it here in the 150s, 160s, I sent out a couple of breakout alerts, and stock has gone from the IPO price here in the 140s, 150s, 160s, trading as high as 650 here in the last year and a half or so. And there was a breakout alert that I sent out that did not work out. This breakout alert here was not as successful. Now, I failed my subscribers by not highlighting this recent breakout here at about 380. I'm sure I was watching other things because we've had other stocks do well since then. But you can get all the breakouts. Try as best as you can though. Take a look at this one here. This is a one that has also surprisingly done well. TDUP. The breakout alerts were sent here when the stock was under or around 250. It's gone as high as, let's call it about 8.5-ish, give or take. So a nice run there. Take a look at QBTS. This one has also been a great stock for subscribers. Anybody who won this, the breakout alerts was sent here when the stock was under 8. It's gone as high as 20. So another nice move here. And we can see that there's this one is, of course, everybody knows this, PLTR. Now this one was a little bit, I don't want to say obvious, but the name was obvious. And we have lots of breakout alerts for this stock here in 2024 in the 20s, and now has gone as high as 160. The most recent breakout was here after 1 month of rest. It broke out here in the 90s. The stock has gone on and is on its way probably to doubling here in the next couple of months since the most recent breakout here. Let's touch on one more, actually two more. TSSI sent a breakout alert here in the beginning of June. The stock has effectively doubled. The breakout was in the $15 price range, give or take, and it's gone as high as 31, 32. And this one has also done well, TSSI. Let's take a look at another one here. This is RLKB. This stock has also done well for subscribers. There was a breakout alert that I sent out. It failed here, but it came back again. We never give up on breakouts. And on the second breakout alert, you can see many months later, it clears this 27 price level, 28 level. So 27, 28, and has gone as high so far as trading around 52. And let's take a look. I think I have one more here. This is one that everybody's familiar with, Robinhood. Again, lots of breakout alerts here in the last 1-2 years. Initial breakout was here in February. Stock was under, I believe, under just about $12, $13, and it's gone as high as 110. So yes, Breakouts are working if you know how to look for minimum requirements. And of course, this is what I've been doing for clients for more than 22 years plus full time. Now, continuing with the analysis, take a look at VT, which tracks global markets. So one of the reasons why we can be aggressive with the breakouts in the current market environment is because global markets as a whole, as a group, you can see are trading up with the RSI above 69.1. That's a sign of a market globally that should continue doing well. Now, I've been talking about this. Remember, what I'm going to show you here is a monthly chart for the dollar. And irrespective of what one might think about the dollar from a fundamental standpoint, the truth is the dollar is showing signs of what I've been discussing. This support line here has yet to break. So if it can continue holding month to month, I think the dollar eventually recovers or at least becomes stable here if it can hold this level. Now, if the dollar was to break down here, then of course we can entertain lower prices. So my thinking has been that the two lines, so let me draw line number one here for the dollar, could hold. This is a long-term monthly chart, and then off the lows here of 2020, the dollar held this range. If this area continues to be support, then I think that this is telling us commodities could start reversing in the months ahead if the dollar chart gets strong. But of course, that's something we are continuing to monitor. Take a look at URA. Now, I have to admit, I wasn't very particularly enthusiastic about this area of the market, but I have to concede the fact that if we go to the weekly for the uranium ETF, we had a nice 2 weeks of rest, which is what I discussed, 2 weeks of rest. And I discussed the fact that if we have a breakout after those 2 weeks of rest, we might have to have a representation in this space. So now that we've cleared the prior weekly closing high after some rest, this is now of interest. We can see here on the weekly, RSI is above 69.1, but also more importantly, the RSI on the monthly has finally cleared what to me was resistance. So there was a resistance line. If you go back here, resistance right there, we finally cleared that resistance line, and the RSI is now above 69.1. So those two things mean that we have to give this room, or at least give this our attention. And also the MACDs finally are trading at 3-year highs. So definitely uranium names for now are in play, especially the ones that have settled down for a couple of weeks and are staging fresh breakouts. Take a look at GLD. We know that GLD continues. In fact, let me show you the daily for GLD. So daily, there's a couple of things taking place here. If you take a look at this line, we've had a series of failed breakouts for gold. We had a failed breakout here, and this week another failed breakout. And all of this is happening as the RSI keeps getting lower and lower. So I think that is something to consider here, that it wouldn't surprise me that the dollar gets strong and that finally we break this 50-day moving average for GLD, something it hasn't done for the entire 2025 trading period. The RSI has held, the price has held generally above the 50-day moving average. But now, especially with the daily, if the daily continues pulling, showing these failed breakouts, GLD might start pulling back. But let's us understand that it still is a very strong gold chart, especially given that the monthly RSI is absolutely strong. This is a very strong market. Prices behave different when the RSI is at such levels. And remember, GLD has been bullish as far as our analysis is concerned ever since it moved its RSI above 69.1 when I sent out that breakout alert July of last year. So I would not say gold is done, but some cracks are showing up on its daily chart. GDX on the monthly continues to be good with the RSI above 69.1. Same thing can be said about SLV. RSI continues to be good. The RSI is still above 69.1, so we know that we can still play that space for potential movement to the upside. And if I continue here, take a look at USO. And I'm going through this quickly. USO continues to be, in my eyes, very tough to read. It's been in this range for about almost 3 years. And the RSI on the top side has yet to clear this top side resistance line as far as USO monthly is concerned. Now we switch gears here. We take a look at BTC. And we can see that BTC on its weekly is showing resistance, something I've talked about here. This top side line might be the reason why BTC is struggling. And if it continues rolling over from here, then this might set the stage for what could end up being the beginning of a significant pullback. Now, because we are recording the second straight down week, now we are open for a fresh breakout for BTC. That possibility is now on the table, fresh breakout. And that would also mean that there's a possibility that this line here, the top side RSI line, could be cleared. Now, if this line is cleared to the upside, I would assume BTC is going to take off again, have another run, maybe take it into the 140s, 150s, 160s in the short term, and then we can evaluate. Now, definitely, in my view, the RSI weekly chart is showing this top side resistance. That's, in my opinion, is the key line to watch in the short term for BTC. Otherwise, we need a price breakout here in the coming weeks, fresh price breakout to take BTC to substantially even higher improved levels. On the daily for BTC, take a look at the RSI lows line. We have yet to break this trend line on the daily, so BTC is fine. Remember, if we take a look at the prior highs, if we draw them that way, BTC is well above the breakout. Its breakout is very healthy, has yet to show us signs of the breakout failing. So BTC, I would say, is pulling back, but it's not broken. Take a look at BTC from a 4-hourly standpoint, and we can see that on the 4-hourly, BTC is showing support currently on this trend line. Recent lows of RSI on the 4-hourly showing support, but at the same time also, what was the breakout line has turned into short-term resistance. So this was the prior top side resistance line, and you can see how BTC broke out and had a move to fresh all-time highs when it cleared this line here, which is this movement. Now we can extend that trend line, and we see that it turned into resistance. So this same line, if I extend it, you can understand now how it became resistance. So this is also, we broke down here and has turned into resistance. So BTC would have to clear the red line if it is to continue and break out and record improved all-time highs. Remember though, on the big picture, bulls should be satisfied by the fact that BTC continues to hold its monthly RSI above 69.1. As long as that monthly is where it is, above 69.1, BTC can still have a substantial run into uncharted territories. By the way, quick look at Ethereum. These charts are available to you via the charts link on mwathe.com. Just want to point out here that RSI for Ethereum on the daily is still above 69.1. And remember, I was telling you about the possibility that Ethereum was going to spike based on the ultimate Mwathe breakout. And so this spike is not a surprise. We saw this before it happened because we knew that the moving averages were telling us there was going to be a potential spike. We got the spike. RSI is still above 69.1. That means that in my understanding, we're going to make higher highs for Ethereum before anything resolves. Higher highs are coming as long as that RSI is above 69.1. And also on the monthly, again, this chart is available to you. We can see that the monthly chart is also where we see signs of a potential resistance. To simplify this chart, I just take the top side of the highs of the RSI on the monthly, and we can see that this is a challenge for Ethereum. If it cannot move above this line here month to month, then in the coming months, Ethereum should start pulling back until it clears this resistance line on the RSI. So that's it for now. I leave you as I found you, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one Creator, Adonai.